Welcome back, everybody, to our trip through the NBA over unders. Grant and I did the first 10 teams alphabetically in the NBA last week. That was the Hawks through the Warriors. We made a few locks, and we're going to do the same this week. The Rockets through the Knicks. There are some really interesting teams in here. Grant and I will each pick three locks that we really like. There's some fun teams. Obviously, there'll be 10 more teams next week, and then Grant and I are going to do a props show and another future show the week that the season starts. That'll be probably earlier than in the week because I think the season starts on a Thursday. So we'll try to get that out before the season starts, obviously. But yeah, should be another fun night.
Yeah, we got some really interesting teams. Miami, my favorite team. I can't wait to talk about them because I've fully bought in. So let's get to it.
Yeah, well, first team of the night, the Houston Rockets. The worst team in the NBA last year. They were 17-55. They had ended up with the second overall pick after the draft lottery. Drafted Jalen Green. Their over-under sits between 24.5 and 27.5, depending on the book. That's one thing that we talked about last week that I just want to reiterate. We're pulling numbers from DraftKings, FanDuel, BetRivers, and William Hill. Those are the four books that we use the most here in Illinois. And just be sure to shop these numbers. Like you can see here with the Rockets, there's a 3-game difference, which you know it makes a big difference. You know, we had a couple bets last year come down to the half game, so make sure you shop your numbers. I think that this team is going to remain arguably the worst team in the league. They were 27th in offensive efficiency last year, 28th in defense. Obviously, Jalen Green, Alfred Sengun, Josh Christopher, and then Usman Garuba were their 4 first-rounders. They ended up with 4 first-round picks. They also added Dante Exum for what that's worth. John Wall has requested a trade. He doesn't look like he's going to play any games for them this year. Basically, this team has been stripped down to young guys. Kevin Porter Jr. had a little nice leap last year. Jayshawn Tate showed that he's probably at least a bench NBA player. Christian Wood kind of got free reign of the court there for a while. We'll see. To me, this team is just really, really young. The second-year head coach, I don't know what they're playing for. It's kind of hard to see them wanting to win games. I don't think they're going to win enough early to get the motivation to try to stay in the hunt. And they have their pick this year. That's a big thing for the Rockets is they have traded some first rounders and given swap rights to the Thunder. And this is one of the years that they keep their first rounder. So they have incentive to just tank, get somebody to go with Green and Porter and their other young guys. And I think they're going to be really bad. This is one of my locks tonight, under 27.5. I don't see how they win 11 more games than last year. I get that it's 10, there's 10 more games in the season, but I think they're worse than last year. I don't really see how Jalen Green's going to impact winning. I do like him as a prospect, obviously super athletic, good scorer, but they're going to really, really struggle to win.
2 players played over 45 games last year for them. Jayshawn Tate and Sterling Brown.
Yeah.
That's not a winning combination right there. Consistency is going to have to be key for them, and I don't really see it with this roster. You have Porter Jr., who is literally a toss-up at any night tonight. I'm not really sure, even when he plays good, that equals a winning performance. I know he's talented, 100% is, but is he going to win the game? That's still up in the air for him. Jalen Green, same exact way, just like you said, talented, has the tools, can fly, can run. I just don't know if it equals winning. And when things don't equal winning, I tend to go under, especially with a roster like this. Who is their best player? Is it Christian Wood?
Unless I think Jalen Green's probably their best player. Christian Wood is a little bit more established, but this is you and I create this spreadsheet and a Google Doc. We really dive into these teams and put together kind of a pros and cons list. And one of the things on our cons list for them is 0 players who are proven winners, and that's the truth. I mean, they really just have a ton of young guys. They haven't proven anything, and they definitely haven't proven that they're they dictate outcomes, in a winning fashion.
Uh,
So this is going to be an experimental year. See what they have in Sangoon and Green and their other rookies, and see if Kevin Porter can kind of back up what he did last year. And a good outcome for them is they get a super high pick, and Jalen Green looks like he's you know got something. He doesn't kind of flop, and Porter looks okay, and Jay Sean Tate and a couple other guys look like rotation guys. That's like best case scenario for them this year.
Yeah, this roster is just really bad. I mean, when you look at it, when you think about how you're going to beat other teams in the NBA, not a lot there. I bet Christian Wood to win Most Improved last year. I actually don't mind him, but there ain't a lot there. Defensively, offensively, a lot of guys who play for themselves. I don't really see it, and there's no way you can convince me to go over. So I'm on.
Yeah. Yep. I have them pegged for 21 and 61. They're not good, and then they're going to have the losing incentive to get that pick as high as possible. This is out of the 3 bets the other night, and this bet, this is my favorite so far. I just don't see a way they even sniff remotely 30 wins. So, 27 and a half is a great number.
Right. And as the league gets a little bit better as far as like the average as far as like how good a team is and how good the talent is going up, significantly in the last couple of years. So when you have teams like this, it helps because now when your team meets the Rockets night to night, you think like, oh, there's the win, right? Like, oh, there's the Rockets, let's beat them. So when you have that, it stinks because you're gonna have teams preying on you. You're gonna play good players against you, and it almost seems like an easy win. I'm with you, so there's not much argument here.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty consensus. Take the under on them.
Yeah.
Particularly the 27 and a half is at DraftKings and FanDuel. So, run, don't walk.
We got the Pacers next. Interesting team. I think you and I are differing opinions on this team. The Pacers went 34 and 38 last year, 9th in the East. They had the 13th pick in the draft this year, which was Duarte. They have a pretty talented roster, actually. When you look at, when you compare other teams that are in this range, Sabonis is probably their best player. He's a power forward / center. They've had some weird issues between him and Turner in the last few years as far as what they're going to do for the future. Brogdon is obviously really, really good. He just kind of gets injured and is not like a superstar. He's just more of a really good player. LeVert joins their team this year as a starting shooting guard. LeVert actually was really good in May, which is good for them. Although we've seen the news here recently that he's going to maybe sit out a few weeks, which is unfortunate. TJ Warren is also going to miss a few weeks. They have a little bit of injury issues. I think Karras averaged like 20 so a game in May, which they need a scorer like that, somebody who can take the load off Sabonis because, when your best player is a big man, it's tough to win the league because the league plays so fast up and down, and it's hard for a guy like him to impact the game like that. But he's an unbelievable screener. He's an unbelievable offensive player as far as like when he can get the ball around the free throw line range. They have a new coach this year, and the Mavs old coach and Rick Carlisle, so that'll be really helpful because he's been an amazing coach for years, although he hasn't made the playoffs or hasn't won any playoff series. Rick Carlisle is a proven winner. That's a fact. So we can't discount him. I actually am going to go under on the Pacers. I'm going to go under 44 and a half. That would be 11 more wins than last year if they broke the over on that number. But I think you're going to go over, but they have other numbers, so I'll let you take it away on the over. But I don't see it with this team. I don't mind them. I just don't really see how they're going to get over the 44 because they don't have. There's so many questions, right? I went through all that stuff at the beginning as far as like injuries and how they're going to score and who plays well with who, I don't know. They got rid of Aaron Holiday, who actually was pretty decent for them last year. I think he's going to be pretty good for the Wizards this year. I'm a coach guy. I know he'll help. I just don't. There's not enough for me to say over. It's not going to be a bet for me, so I'm not too crazy confident about it. But there's nothing here that pushes me over. I know you're on the opposite side.
Yeah, I I actually like this team a lot. They were 45 and 28 the year before with Nate McMillan, and then they hired I can't even think of his name, but by all accounts, it was a
Bronson.
shit show.
Name was.
It was a shit show in the locker room. Nobody liked him. He had lost the locker room like 50 games in.
Right.
For me, the upgrade from him to Carlisle is pretty steep. It's probably the biggest coaching upgrade of any team this offseason, in my opinion. And I think they'll be closer to that 45 and 28 team we saw 2 years ago. You add Karis LeVert to that, you get a healthy TJ Warren back at some point. I just think that if they're healthy enough, they are the type of team that will play hard every night.
Right.
They're going to steal wins against all the crap teams, and they're going to win games against good teams. They're plenty good enough to do that. I think I think last year was a bit of an anomaly for them. They've been this is their records the last 4 years. They've had 45 wins, 48, 48, 42. Like they are 45 the year before that. They're one of those teams that just wins, that goes a few games over 500 every year. Sabonis is an awesome, awesome player. He's an all-star caliber player. And I actually think there's some upside with Turner as a trade piece. Maybe they can get something that fits just a fuzz better. I know he doesn't have the biggest trade value, but if they could maybe just get, a piece that fits a little bit better, that might help them a decent amount, give Sabonis a little more room around the basket. And I to me, Carlisle's such a big upgrade, and LeVert and Warren for the majority of the season, hopefully. They're just a talented team. And I think that over 42.5 is where I would lean. This is not necessarily something I'm going to bet, but I may end up betting it, depending on what we kind of see with Warren and LeVert the next week or so, leading into the season, how many games they're each going to miss to start the season, because it's kind of unclear. There's some news that LeVert could be back around, the first game or two. So if everybody's going to be healthy, I just think Brogdon, LeVert, Warren, Sabonis, Turner is one of the better starting lineups in the league. And Carlisle has proven that if he gets, a team that tries hard and they're going to be awesome on defense, that he's a good coach.
Yeah, I think I just for the record, I think I would lean over on the 42 number. But when it comes to
it's a good number.
Yeah, that's the one thing I have in my notes right here is I said good number. Like this is a good number for this team.
Yeah.
If I had to lean one or the other, though, I think I would lean the under 44, and I would go over the 40. So I actually could go either way. This team does have a lot of talent. I think it's tough to win a ton of games in the NBA when your best player is a center. I know he doesn't play center all the time, but he's a center. I mean, he just did. Like when you watch him play, Sabonis is a center. And
I think I agree with you. I'm not the biggest. This. I think centers are the the most useless position to pay. Like if you're going to pay one of your big guys, but he's so good, and a lot of these teams do not have good centers that he takes advantage. Like really takes advantage of them. Like he's not like Embiid, Jokic, Davis level like center where it's like obviously this guy's amazing, but he's like the tier below that where it's close enough where it's like he dictates the outcome enough, and he can pick on these teams that are playing crap centers. Like the Bucks. If Brook Lopez comes to town, he's just going to abuse Brook Lopez, stuff like that. He's good enough to take advantage of it. But yeah, I agree. Generally, your center being arguably your best player is not what you want. It's not a championship roster. That's not what we're talking about here.
Right.
So
they're going to have one of Brogdon or LeVert probably every night. One of. Yeah. Roughly. So that's fine, right, to compete. I'm not sure it's enough to win. But the thing for them is if you get both of them playing well for a long stretch of the season, that's going to be huge for them because they can rip off a ton of wins with that roster. Like that's a ton of talent with Brogdon, LeVert, and Sabonis, and then hopefully Turner can hold his hold his own here at the end of the starting lineup. I like Rick Carlisle. I like their roster. There's not a lot of faith with the injuries and with actually winning. So I'm going to go under, but I actually don't mind the bet with the
Yeah, I think the interesting question for them is where do they end up in the pecking order in the East? Because I think Nets, Bucks, Heat, Hawks. I think Nets, Bucks, Heat, Hawks, Sixers are pretty handily the top 5. And then the Celtics, Pacers, Knicks, Bulls are kind of like,
right.
you're really hunting for that 6 seed to get out of the play-in, to get out of the play-in tournament. So, I have them 7th behind the Celtics, basically barely ahead of Knicks, Bulls. I think Knicks, Bulls, Pacers will be a really interesting battle to see who can get home court in the play-in games.
This is a good number. I mean, it just shows right here. This is a good number. So if you like them, take it. If not, I'm not pushing anybody to bet this, though, because I think this is right around where they'll land.
Well, the next team, we are going out west for the Los Angeles Clippers, who they're going to be without Kawhi Leonard for presumptively the whole season. I think that's the biggest storyline with them is, no Kawhi. He's essentially come out and said that, he's working back, but nobody really expects him to play until maybe, the last week or so of the season. But I mean, he got hurt in the playoffs and didn't really have surgery till like the finals, which was even later last year. So they added Eric Bledsoe. They added Justice Winslow. Not sure how much Justice Winslow helps you. Drafted Keon Johnson. They traded away Pat Bev. I think Pat Bev's one of the more overrated guys, so I don't really think that changes a lot for them. But this is what I put in my notes. They are going to play a lot of Reggie Jackson and Eric Bledsoe. That's tough. Now Jackson looked awesome in the playoffs, but the playoffs are kind of built for a guy who can do the one-on-one downhill thing in the kind of grinded out games. I don't know on a nightly basis that he helps them win that many games. This is going to be a lot on Paul George's shoulders. He's basically just got to carry this team. I think he has it in him if he can stay healthy. He's proven that before that he can lead a team to 40 to 45 wins. But we're looking at an over-under of 44.5 to 45.5. And I'm leaning under. I just think if Paul George goes down, they are just playing a bunch of role guys, particularly role guys who Morris and Ibaka, who, Ibaka was hurt all year pretty much. Bledsoe, who's not done any winning basketball, really besides letting Giannis carry him around. So I lean under for sure. The Kawhi thing is a big, big loss.
First thing in the notes is how good is Terrence Mann? ? We're not really sure. He obviously played really well coming down the stretch for them last year. He had some huge games on some really, really big, spotlights for him. I like that about him. I actually liked him coming into the draft. I'm not sure he's he scored 31 games. That's pretty crazy. But
yeah,
any injuries, they're screwed. They're screwed if they have injury problems. If they have
Paul George needs to play 70 plus games for them to have any chance.
If they had COVID problems, they're screwed, right? There's a lot of things that play into this roster. Kawhi Leonard played the most minutes per game last year and averaged 25 points per game for this team. I'm going to lean under. I don't think it's a lock by any means because, like you said, Paul George is very, very good. So it's hard to lock against him, and he can obviously carry a team. But I think with the question marks with the situation as far as who they have on the roster, who's going to be there in 9 in and 9 out, this seems like a team that you're going to look back on and be like, damn, they started those guys. This guy started 10 games for them. This guy started 20 games for them. So,
yeah, 100%.
It seems like another to me. And Justice Winslow, come on. That ain't doing nothing for them.
To me, this is a bet for me. This would have been, if we'd had 4 locks, this would have been my 4th lock. I will be betting this. To me, if George misses, 20 games, some with just random rest and others with the twisted ankle or whatever, and he's been missing games the last few years, who's their second best player, Grant? Who do you think is their second best player?
Their second best player is
Reggie Jackson.
Probably Reggie Jackson, and I'm actually trying to find a way. Today, all my research was trying to find a way that Reggie Jackson could become a Miami Heat, so that tells you where I'm at with him.
I don't see if they just don't have the dudes around them. Like they
No.
do have some experienced guys like Morris and Bledsoe and Jackson and Batum and Ibaka. Like those guys have been around the block. They're seasoned vets, but the upside is just not there.
No.
George has to do a lot of heavy lifting. I don't know how they were the best 3-point shooting team like in history last year. They were just made a million 3-pointers. You add Eric Bledsoe to that and a lot more Reggie Jackson. Morris probably doesn't shoot 45% this year. I think that's a bit of smoke and mirrors from last year. So I lean under. I think this is a bet number for me at 45.5.
Yeah, I like to bet also. This isn't a lock, but it's definitely going to be a bet for me at under. This seems like a team where they start underperforming and Paul George does not play consistently.
Yeah, I think at some point they have to determine, is Kawhi actually coming back? When is he coming back? Or do we just kind of go the other way? I have them ninth. I think they're the ninth best team in the West.
And if they're out of playoff contention, not even out, but if they're in the playing game and Kawhi's not healthy, this seems like a team that
mail it in,
kind of gives in at the end of the year.
Definitely.
We got the other team in town, and that's the Los Angeles Lakers. This team is very polarizing. You now have Russell Westbrook on the roster. You have LeBron James, who is arguably one of the top, 3 players in the history of the NBA. You have Anthony Davis, who is proven yet unproven. I'd say that's pretty true, right? He obviously can play well in big situations, but yet it's up in the air whether Anthony Davis can be the lead guy on a championship team, because LeBron kind of brought him into that. It's kind of up in the air for him. Wayne Ellington, who will probably start some games for them, is now on the roster. Rondo, who is has now taken on the name of Playoff Rondo because he did horrific in the regular season. Malik Monk,
he's certainly not regular season Rondo.
Malik Monk, who has just not been good at all. He can definitely make shots, but he just has not been good. Hopefully he can find a role in this team. Kendrick Nunn, who I actually like for this team because he should bring some scoring stability to this team. I'm not sure I like the Kendrick Nunn, Russell Westbrook combo night to night. I don't think that's the greatest winning formula of all time, but he should at least bring like stability as far as like playing minutes, being a guy who can score points night to night, because you have Carmelo, you have Russell. Actually, Russell plays a lot of games. LeBron actually does play a lot of games too, but you never know as he gets older in his career. Anthony Davis, it's such a question mark as far as like what they're going to be night to night, because when it comes down to it, all they're going to be worried about is getting these guys healthy towards the end of the year. I understand LeBron wants to win another MVP, but when you get into the thick of it, he has to make a decision as to what he's going to go for. So I don't think we can count on that. Dwight Howard, DeAndre, Trevor Ariza, Kent Bazemore. There's just a lot of questions in this roster.
Yeah.
I actually would lean over because of how much talent they have.
Yeah, their top-end talent's pretty good.
Yeah, Ellington should help. Ellington's not very good, but he can make shots. It's hard to discount LeBron James. He just does it every year. Yeah. But when he's motivated and he has a sense of urgency as far as like, let's get wins, let's be first, they'll blow this number out of the water if that happens.
100%.
But if not, it's going to compete with this number because you have no idea who's coming.
It's a lot of wins. That's a lot of wins to get.
They won 42 games last year. 42.
Yeah.
That's not a ton.
Davis missed a ton. LeBron missed a ton. Schroeder had COVID. To me, this is an easy over prediction, but it's a scary bet. Obviously, betting on LeBron has been a pretty profitable thing, I'd say, over the years. 51.5's pretty low for a team with LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook. In my opinion, I think they are the best team in the West. They're probably the best regular season team if LeBron plays most of the games. It's just he's old. This is year 19 or whatever it is. Like, he's played more minutes than essentially every player ever. He's been hurt 2 of the last 3 years. It's trending in a direction that makes it hard for me to bet this number. If this team's healthy and they, and they're wanting to get first seed, I think they're 56, 57 win team. This goes over pretty easy.
Yeah.
But Davis, obviously one of the most injury-prone players in the league, and this LeBron trend line is a bit scary for me. So I'll have to think about whether I bet it or not. I think if they go over, they kind of have a chance to like soar past this number if all things go right. And like you were talking about these guys they added, it's essentially a whole new team. If you look at the additions and losses part of our sheet here, it's like super long. Westbrook, Ellington, Rondo, Monk, Nunn, Carmelo, Dwight Howard. I mean, they just added a million guys, so there'll be some transition period certainly for them to kind of mesh. And these guys don't look good, but you put them next to LeBron. There's been a lot worse guys look decent next to LeBron. I mean, Boobie Gibson was like a legit player, and Malik Monk and Kendrick Nunn are better than him. So
right.
I think that you'll see different versions of Monk and Nunn and Bazemore, even maybe like these. They have enough guys who have played basketball to like mix and match, get something out of them each night. And they got Westbrook, who's just certified psycho. Like he just plays hard all the time. And we've never seen him with LeBron, obviously. Like LeBron can take players and kind of say, this is what you're doing. Like, I'm LeBron effing James.
Right.
This is what you're doing. We're going to win a title if you just will not do this. So maybe we see a more reserved Russell Westbrook who kind of uses his energy and bursts and can take over when LeBron's out of the game. So I definitely will lean over. I will probably end up betting it, but I think it's a bet that makes me nervous with the health of these guys.
They now have the 3-star insurance where it's like one guy sit out. You now have LeBron and Westbrook. Now you have LeBron sit out. Now you have Westbrook and AD, right? So
yeah, definitely.
And night to night, that's going to prevail because a lot of teams in the NBA don't have that sort of insurance. I would lean over. It's not going to be a lock from me, but with the amount of talent, with the amount of guys who can score night to night, I think it's an over. If you like LeBron and you think LeBron's going to have some sort of revenge year, which he's been, I guess, trying to do for the last couple of years,
yeah,
then you have to bet over because they have enough talent to win. I mean, their number, you can get 51.5. If they play
LeBron-led team with Anthony Davis.
If they play well, they can push 60 wins.
Yeah,
like that's 9 more wins than what that number is. So you have to go over if you like them, and that's what I'm going to go. But I'm not going to lock it. I'm going to go, later on in the night as far as the next few teams before you see my locks.
Yeah, well, my next lock is the next team, and this is my favorite bet so far. I just think this is it's a perfect number to take the over on. The Memphis Grizzlies, over under 40.5. I am going over, big lock for me. This team has clearly, Taylor Jenkins is a really good coach. The first year he came in and took a super young team to just a few games under 500 and made the playoffs. It was a really good showing for them, and Ja as a rookie. They went 38-34 last year, and Jaren Jackson barely played. Ja Morant was, he missed a bunch of time with an ankle injury. They're just really deep. The loss of Valanciunas is certainly going to make a difference. Grayson Allen helped them a little bit. They lost him as well, but Steven Adams is 80% of Valanciunas. I think they kind of do different things, but I think that Jenkins will figure out a way to use him. And I think it makes more sense that Jaren Jackson will play the 5, or Brandon Clark and him will kind of play and mix match, how that goes. But they added Jarrett Culver. Maybe he can revitalize his career with a new coach and kind of a healthier environment than the Timberwolves. But to me, it's just they have like 8 or 9 guys who are above average NBA players. And year 3, Ja has the potential for like a big leap, in my opinion, if he can just stay healthy. He's been unbelievable. He's not, I think his shooting kind of limits him, but if he can start making some more threes, some off the dribble threes, he's an issue. Certainly. They just have a really good coach. 15th in offense, 6th in defense last year. Dylan Brooks fouls more than any player on the planet Earth, which is interesting, but he plays really good defense. Kyle Anderson's really smart. Bane, you get Desmond Bane in year 2. He was a pretty good player for them. You get Melton back. This is just a good team. It's just one of the. It's like the Pacers. It's like you look at them and it's like, well, there's a lot of guys who just don't really strike you as awesome, but they don't play any bad players on a night. Like there's like you bring the bench in and they're just going to slaughter your bench if you don't have a good bench because they're playing real NBA players. So over 500, all they have to do is go over 500 in a West where there's no Jamal Murray. The Suns might take a small step back. There's no Kawhi Leonard. The Warriors are going to be without Clay and Wiseman for quite a while. Over 500 is a pretty easy call.
This is a bet for me. Can you guess how many games Jaren Jackson Jr. started last year?
Like 12.
4.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. He only played 11.
Yeah. So I'm in on this. I'm all in on this. If he's going to play a lot, Ja Morant should take a leap. I agree. They have guys who can actually play real minutes in the NBA night to night. They have a coach who's continuing to prove himself and already had a good season last year for himself. I like this bet. Jaren Jackson, I mean, he's better. He's a lot better than what they had last year.
Yeah, 100%.
As far as night to night goes. I obviously hope that he can be healthy. It's never a guarantee, but if we're going to assume that he has reasonable health, then I think this is an easy bet.
Yeah, it's just I just like they have 10 guys who are like legit rotation level NBA players. And maybe that's not even counting Chris Dunn, who's like obviously nothing special, but if you put him in there with the right lineup, like he's a really good defender. Like he's a borderline rotation guy. Jarrett Culver, we just don't know. Like, he's been in such a crap situation that he's got the size and some ability. Maybe he finds a little something here. They drafted Zaire Williams as kind of like an upside thing. They took a chance on him because they traded Valanciunas for Adams and took on that crap Bledsoe contract, which they did trade for something. Or they got Culver in that deal, I think. So they went 4 games over 500. Jaren Jackson played 11 games. Ja Morant missed 10 games. DeAnthony Melton missed 20 games. So I just think that it's a pretty easy over. You know what you're getting night to night.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to piggyback off of your lock, and I'm going to go with my next lock for me is the Miami Heat. Miami Heat over as a lock for me, 46.5, which is at William Hill. This team won 40 games last year. They went 40-32, and they actually didn't have that good a year. They went 6th in the East. They lost in the first round to the eventual NBA champions, the Milwaukee Bucks. 6th in defensive efficiency, 17th in offense efficiency. They added Kyle Lowry. They added PJ Tucker, who played a big role in the Bucks championship run last year. They drafted Yurt 7. I'm not really sure how his name.
Signed him, yeah.
Yeah, or signed him Yurt 7. Maybe a healthy Oladipo towards the end of the year. He's been pretty banged up. I'm not really sure he's going to play much at the beginning of the year, but that's okay. I expect huge things out of Bam Adebayo this year. I think he had a little bit of a plateau year. He definitely got better, but it wasn't near as much as what a lot of people expected out of Bam because his offense was a little bit relied upon. And I think that burden is going to come off of him a little bit more this year with Lowry. So I think if you can take a little pressure off him offensively, it'll help him because he had such a big role as far as could he produce from the elbow last year, and it didn't really work out for him. He definitely got better. You saw him in the USA stuff,
yeah.
But it wasn't enough to really carry a team. And if you have him, kind of grow from a little less pressure this year. High expectations, lighter offensive load with Lowry. They have a great coach. Eric Spoelstra is a proven great coach. I think Hero and Butler are going to play a little bit of backup point guard, which they don't really have right now with Gabe Vincent. I mean, he'll play because he can make shots, but Hero is going to hopefully play a little bit of those minutes.
Yeah.
He also should have an ability to grow this year. They could pick one up. That's what I kind of mentioned earlier as far as trying to find a guy like Reggie Jackson, Reggie Jackson kind of makes too much money for the roster right now. But trying to find somebody who can kind of play that role. I really like this team. I think once they find that fit early, Spoelstra's a guy who once they find something, they go on huge runs. Like they get really good. They win a lot of games. They win night to night because they're tough. They win at home. They play really good defense. I just really like this team. I'm a Miami fan. Maybe I'm a homer. Maybe I'm not. But they have a talented roster. It fits together. They have guys who are going to buy into winning. Lowry won an NBA championship. Lowry
Right.
knows that he wants to win, and he wants to win right now. He doesn't have that many years left on his NBA career. Jimmy Butler, he's not the most glamorous star of stars in the NBA, but he's gonna be there night to night. He's gonna play a lot of defense. I think they have guys who are tough. I think they have guys who are hard nosed, and I really like this roster. I think the 46 number is a decent number, but I think it's an easy over for them.
This is one of the hardest ones for me. I've waffled back and forth so many times. I'm leaning under the 49.5 number, but man, I love Butler and Lowry. They are like the quintessential type of guys that I love. I'd love to have on my team. They just play really hard. They do the right things. They make winning plays every single night.
Right.
This Miami team, though, they haven't won more than 44 games since LeBron James played. Like they've had, other than one time when they went on that crazy run in the second half of the season, they won 48 games that year.
Right.
Since Butler's been there, it's been good but not great. Now, obviously, Kyle Lowry's a humongous upgrade. It just kind of is yet to be seen how much him and Butler are going to get to play and not be rested, because I do think this team has like championship upside if things like break correctly. Maybe they make a trade. So I think they're going to do work to keep them healthy. But man, I have a hard time going under on a team with those two guys and emerging Bam, and Hero should bounce back. I think that was just kind of a weird year. They had a bunch of COVID stuff last year, but they won 40 games. So we'll see. If I would not bet this personally. I can't bet either way. I would lean under the 49.5 number. 50 wins would be a really good season for them. Like that would be, a little bit more than I think that they would expect to have. I think they just want to get in that top four. If they can get the fourth seed or the third seed, right around 47, 48 wins, I think that's probably good enough for them. But I struggle so bad because I want to bet the over. I just want to ride Butler and Lowry to an over. But health is a concern with those guys to a certain degree. Spo's an awesome coach, and Bam certainly has a little bit left to grow. So this is a hard one for me. If you like those guys, I'd say take the over, but I'm leaning under.
Yeah, I think the number is good, and I can't argue that. But I find this team to be a team that's going to get in a groove. And when you get into groove with a good coach, and I think they're going to start to flirt with 50 wins, I think we're going to have that narrative come towards the end of the year of like, is Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler enough? Right? We're going to start to ask ourselves that question come, like springtime of 2022. So it's going to be more of like, can they actually contend? So I think that if we have that question, they'll flirt with the 50 wins, and we don't have any number that's at 50. That's why I picked the 46.5, and I'm going to go over. I like it, and I'm going to follow it up with another lock of mine, which is the Milwaukee Bucks over 53.5. I actually really like this bet. I think this is a super, super lock. And this might be my favorite bet of the year. Actually, they won 56 games in 2019, 2020. 56. And this number is 53. And they won the championship last year. Giannis plays consistently night to night. They now have Drew Holiday. He's going to play all the time. I think this is the number one seed. Giannis does not seem like a player to me who is going to win the championship and then all of a sudden become like, some guy who just sits all the time. He's not doing that. He plays constantly. He's getting better. He's gotten better every single year. I don't really see the argument against the Bucks going over this number. I think that 53 number is crazy. I think the 55 number, I honestly would take the over on that. That's why I'm kind of locking in the 53 for myself. I think this roster has gotten even better. I think that Giannis has gotten even better. I think he's going to contend for being one of the best players in the league for the next few years coming up. 53.5, it's a lock for me over.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This is one of those other bets that's not necessarily a lock, but I'm betting it. Ride Giannis to the over. He plays every game. He plays hard every game. Middleton's the same way. Drew Holiday is awesome. Like, and for me, this is like they're going to hang close enough with the Nets that they're going to be grinding down the stretch to see if they can get home court. I think that they realize that the Nets are probably a little bit better, but if they can steal home court, maybe that gives them the advantage they need to get back to the finals. I think they're both teams are going to win a shitload of games. I mean, 55 plus for both of them. I honestly think both of them could challenge for 60 wins if they're healthy. It'll be a really interesting battle at the top because I do think both teams would. The Bucks in particular would prefer to have home court if it's close.
I don't really understand how this team isn't the lock, like not the lock, but how is they not the favorite to be the number 1 seed?
Because the Nets are going to roll people.
But even with all, I don't. Yeah,
I think the Nets bench is. I think the Nets like secondary players are almost as good as the Bucks, but the Nets top end is better.
You have so much with the Bucks, like night to night. It's consistently good.
Good coach. I mean, really good regular season coach.
I don't know. I honestly, when I saw this number and I was doing my predictions and my thoughts on each team, is like right when I saw the 50. Well, right when I saw the 3.5 number after the 5, I was like, this is a super lock for me. So
yeah,
I'm going to be there. If he gets injured, if Giannis gets injured or something, like something really breaks wrong, then that's just whatever. Like I'll take it and I'll move on. But if they play like they're supposed to, I mean, they have a legit player in Drew Holiday now on their team. Chris Middleton proved himself as a guy who can really, really come through. I think he's going to have similar seasons as he has been for the last few years. I don't really see how this number doesn't hit. I'm going to reiterate, just like I said at the beginning, they won 56 games before last year. 56 when they had like the last season. So I don't know. I don't really see an argument against it, but I like it. It's going to be a lock for me.
Yeah, Giannis has gotten to himself to the point of like the LeBron territory in terms of like regular season. Just bet it, especially if they're going to give you a 53.5 number. Just ride it. He plays every freaking game, and he cares about every game.
Right.
And you think that dude doesn't want to win another MVP, go back to back like that? That dude cares nothing else about winning. That's like, so 53.5 is pretty easy number. I agree. It wasn't one of my locks necessarily, but it's definitely one of my bets. This next team, I think, qualifies for borderline most dysfunctional team in the league. They fired their head coach during the middle of last season and hired a random guy from the Raptors staff. The Minnesota Timberwolves, they went 23-49 last year. Karl-Anthony Towns missed a ton of games, so that number might be a bit deceiving. But their over/under sits between 32.5 and 34.5 this year. It's an interesting number, but for me, I lean under just purely out of dysfunction. They fired their GM the other day. Like, they just fired him. And they hired an interim guy, I think, that was on the staff already. Their coach is, what's his name? The guy they hired off the Raptor staff. I can't even remember his name right now.
Was Finch?
Yeah, Chris Finch.
Chris Finch, yeah.
He didn't really show me much last year. It's really hard to compare last year's team and use that to think because Cat missed so many games. D'Lo barely played, it seemed like. And I think they tried to tank to keep that pick. They actually looked decent like the last month. If I remember correctly, they won quite a few games coming down the stretch. Like that was where a decent number of their wins were. But you just haven't seen Cat D'Lo end up in wins. Like that combination just has not caused winning.
I think betting any Timberwolves over is just an insane bet. Just look at the history of how this team fares out and how this organization has been run. But I'm going to make a quick case for it. And I'm going to be really, 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 really simple as far as my stats. Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell in games played last year on the roster, their ranks were 9th and 11th in games played of the entire roster for the full year. 9th and 11th. That's so far down for your good players. Like look at good teams, like they're towards the top, right? Like we talked about Kawhi Leonard, right? He was the number one guy in games played in minutes last year, or not games played, but minutes last year for them. So it's like if they're gonna play, they obviously have a chance to win. You add Edwards, he's obviously talented. I'm not really sure he affects winning based on his, as far as shot selection and defense and buy-in to actually, winning tonight. But I think there's a case for the over. There's no way I'm betting it, but I think there's a case there, like I said. But as far as dysfunction goes, you have to bet the under here.
Yeah, I don't think this is a bettable number just with the range of outcomes with this team is so wild. They won 9 of their last 16 last year, so that's slightly over 500.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell at the end of the year whose motivation is super high to win these games. I don't know why they won those games. Edwards started showing us some stuff.
Yeah.
I think that they should be pretty happy with what they saw last year. Just his type of player can take a bit to get a level of efficiency that you're happy with, but man, he can really, really score. And when D'Lo and Cat were missing games, he kind of carried the load offensively. Their problem is their bench. I mean, you have to play Okogie and Vanderbilt and Naz Reid and it just Jordan McLaughlin, like Jake Layman. That's just their bench is so bad. D'Lo's missed so many games. I mean, I don't think you can count on him for 70 games this year. Karl-Anthony Towns, maybe you can. I think he missed a bunch with COVID last year. How many games? I think he ended up playing like close to 49 or 50 games. So he didn't miss, that's still missing 20 games. So I just think that it's way too many question marks, like a million question marks with this team. So there's no way I would lean under, but I'm definitely not touching it.
Yeah, this is a no bet to me. And I'm going to follow it up with a lock. This is my last lock of the night. I have the New Orleans Pelicans going under 39.5. They have a new coach, Willie Green. Valanciunas was a big addition for them, and he's going to be good, which is going to help them. But their roster is bad. I don't see where the wins are going to come with this roster. Zion's going to have to carry them. He's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. I like Zion. I think he's amazing as far as like how he can affect a game, but I don't really see him as a guy who can carry a team into a bunch of wins. I think he can win. I think he's a guy who can win a game for your team, but I don't really see how it's like going to convert into a bunch of wins for a team, overall throughout multiple nights with their roster. I really don't see it. Graham, Satoransky, Hart, I just don't see it. Ingram is good, but he's not like a guy who's going to carry you either. Valanciunas and Zion is a good pairing as far as like offensively, but I mean the NBA, these rosters are a lot better. Like night to night, you're going to see way better rosters than this Pelicans roster. They got rid of Lonzo. They added Trey Murphy, who actually you were a big fan of the draft, which I think he'll play, and he could be good, but he's not going to win them games.
He's a role player.
Right. I don't think this is a roster that fits the win total at 39. I don't really see them sniffing 40 wins. I think this is a mid to low 30s win team. I don't really think they're going to be good. I think we're going to have questions about their management as far as their job futures at the beginning or at the end of this year too.
Yeah. So I can see both sides of this. Like on the overside, it's like year 3 Zion. He was unbelievable. You know how many points he averaged per game last year?
Well, I wanted to bet the under, and you talked me out of it. So
I wanted to bet the over.
I know.
And we talked to each other out of it. 27.5.
Yeah, and it was like 22 or something, 23.
Yeah. He is unbelievable. Yeah, if this coach can figure out their late game offense, that's one thing. That's like if you're going to bet the over, you think Stan Van Gundy was such a crap coach at the end of games last year. They pissed away more games than any team in the NBA. They were the worst fourth quarter team. Zion would get off to a hot start and then just have nothing down the stretch. But I think Stan Van Gundy maybe not the best coach, but I think that's kind of a symptom of the Ingram Zion, your turn, my turn. We don't really know how we fit on offense thing as much as it is Stan Van Gundy. Like We've seen this in Boston. You and I have talked about this a lot. Their late game offense has just been absolute crap. And I think part of that is you have Brown and Tatum who are scorers, but not really creators and ball movers. And I think Ingram and Zion are a bit of the same thing. I think Zion did finally wrestle the reins away from Ingram as far as like, hey, this is my team. Like you're
Right.
going to score a lot of points, but I'm the one running our offense. I am going to handle the ball a bunch. They were 23rd in defense last year, and I think they got worse. Like Steven Adams, for his faults, is a pretty good defensive player. Lonzo is a good defensive player, and they replaced him with Valanciunas and Devontae Graham. I don't see how this team is top 25 in defense. They may be one of the 5 worst defenses. If you're one of the 5 worst defenses, you're not going 500. I don't.
Yeah, there's too many talented players in the league. There's way too many for you to be that bad on defense. Alexander Walker is going to have to play real minutes for this team.
Yeah,
he's not.
He's been pretty inconsistent. He's really inconsistent.
Kira Lewis, Najee Marshall, Satoransky, Graham played how many games last year? Wasn't even that many. Like
he wasn't very good either.
No, he wasn't very good. This team has so many holes. They have no good players who are going to consistently give them minutes, good minutes as far as that is, night to night. I don't see it. Play Hayes at center. Okay, you're going to lose every game doing that.
He sucks.
Right.
I think they've moved on.
Yeah, so it's not going to work. I really don't like this roster. That's why I locked it in. I'm not saying Willie Green is a bad coach. I don't know. I can't speak to him, but
he might be.
Right. I don't know. And if I don't know, there's no way I'm going to say he's a yes. So if there's no yes, then it just means no with a bad roster. So, Ingram was an all-star, 2 years ago, not last year, but the year before. I don't really see that happening again. I think he's a good player. He obviously fits the bill as far as like a tall, lengthy wing who can score in the NBA, but he's not a guy who's going to carry you and be that kind of leadership role in the roster. Zion needs to find help, and he's not finding it this year.
To me, this is like, what is the conversation around this team in March? And I think the conversation is
David Griffin.
Is David Griffin getting fired? Is their coach going with him? And what are they doing with Zion and Ingram? Like, are they trying to shop Ingram? What are they doing here? I think I go under with you. The rest of the roster is not good enough, and I don't know that year 3 Zion with no defense. I mean, Zion hasn't proven he can play defense either. This team's going to suck on defense. It's going to suck. So it's really hard to go over, to go close to 500 at 40 with one of the worst defenses in the league. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I don't really see how. I don't know. I think Griffin has a lot of important months coming ahead of him because I don't see it. And when you have that big of a player in Zion and you're the owner of the team, you have to make sure that he has the chance to win. You have to.
Yep.
You cannot afford to lose him. You cannot afford to have people under you that are not giving Zion the best opportunities to win. I don't see it with this roster. And if they're going to have problems with management, if they're going to have problems with who's starting and who's not starting, I think this is an easy lock for me at under. Yep.
Well, we are on to our last team of the night, the New York Knicks. Why don't you lead us in here?
Looks like we have the same thing on here, but you have a lock and I don't.
This is my last lock of the night.
Okay, we have 41-31 last year, 10 games, 10 more wins than losses last year for the Knicks, 4th in the East. That's a huge year for them, especially for the last few years that they've had as far as being really, really bad. Tibbs, their management actually really, really good. Lost to the Hawks in the second round, who actually were pretty good. As far as like having a season for themselves, the same kind of very similar years for the Hawks and the Knicks themselves, as far as both had really good, had some coaches. New coaches, played really well, have some young players. Obviously, Trae Young's better than a young player that the Knicks have, but quickly it's another one of those guys. They added Kemba, Fournier, and Miles McBride. I'm going to say this right now because I think this is really important. The Knicks were 3rd in defensive efficiency last year. They're now going to start Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier.
Yeah, but who did they start last year?
Yeah. Well, yeah, not that many different guys, but well, quickly, I don't know how many games quickly started last year, but
Not very many. I don't know if he started hardly any.
it probably wasn't very many. But I actually, the thing I have down here is that RJ played and started every single game for them last year.
Yep.
Every
Very
single
consistent.
one. Shot 40 from three, and I would love to see his assist numbers go up. I think he averaged 3 a game in assist numbers last year. I think that number can go up. I think they have a decent little kind of combo that they could throw out there, and him quickly and Derrick Rose. I don't really like him, but I think he'll obviously play. He'll be okay. But I think the him quickly Rose lineup is actually going to be something that could be effective for them. Randall had a huge year. Expectations, what are they going to do? How are they going to meet those expectations this year? Defense was their identity last year, and I'm not really sure how much that's going to really play a part in their team. Obviously, they're going to be good, but I think it's going to fall off a little bit. They have a really, really good coach. They play in a really, really big city as far as their spotlight. I think you are going to be a lock on the over. I'm not a lock, but I actually would lean the over also on the 40.5 because I think that Bet Rivers number at 40.5 is a pretty good number. And they were over that last year. They were over that last year with less games on the season. Yeah, 10 less games on the season. Do I think they'll be as good and as effective in the conference next year? I don't know. I think it'll be comparable, probably same, maybe a little bit less. But if you're going to add more games, I don't really think that's a really concern. I would take the over the 40.5.
The more I look at this, the more I love this bet because number one, Tom Thibodeau, every team he's ever coached that's had even like a semblance of talent just exceeds expectations. They just do. We saw that last year. This team wasn't, they weren't predicted to win 30 games, let alone 40. He coached this team to a third in defensive efficiency, like you said. And Reggie Bullock started 64 games, and Elfrid Payton started 63 games. Those guys are decent defenders, but they're not like lockdown dudes. It's just
Elfrid Payton's pretty bad too.
He gets these guys to try hard. He has really good schemes. He knows how to stop these offenses. He's kind of Belichick-y, where he says, "All right, like Durant's just not scoring 50 tonight. Like somebody else has to beat us. Like we'll let some of these other guys try to beat us." So I absolutely love this. They were 22nd in offense last year, and I actually think while Kemba and Fournier will probably maybe they're 8th in defense this year, but I think that they're like 11th in offense. This offense should be a lot better. They only had Rose for 35 games. He should help them year 2 quickly. He should be even better. And I feel like they have an identity. That's like their thing. Like they know what their identity is going into the season. Mitchell Robinson only played 31 games last year. He's an excellent defender, particularly in a Thibodeau offense where he's got a defined role. I love Thibodeau as like a guy to bet on because he just gets everything out of his team. And this team won 41 games last year, and I think they're better than they were last year. Kemba's got a lot to prove. If they can kind of keep him healthy and at least play 50 games, he's going to be better than what Elfrid Payton gave them. Fournier's way better than Reggie Bullock. Just right there, you're talking at least a few win upgrade. And Thibodeau just gets it out. That's what he does. That's his thing. He's going to wear you out. He probably won't be coaching this team in 3 years because Julius Randle is going to want to kill him. But this team, I think, has a chance to be still top 10 in defense. I actually would bet anything that they'll be top 10 in defense. That's just what Thibodeau does. And I think their offense is going to be way better.
Yeah, I hope to see Topping get better. I think he was the kind of the one piece last year where you're kind of like, I'm not really sure about that one.
Well, Tibbs plays rookies about as much, about as little as any coach in history. So maybe Topping,
which shows you a lot about quickly. how much he's actually
he relied on him.
Right, which is pretty crazy. That's actually a sign of a lot of good coaches in the NBA. People say, "Oh, we don't play him." Well, look at all the good coaches; they don't play rookies a lot. So. I think this team's going to be good defensively. I think third is a little bit too high for them. I think that's kind of what I was trying to get at the beginning. But they have guys who can play. They have guys who can play consistently, which in RJ, I think that'll help a lot if you have guys in the lineup every night. I'm not really sure Fournier and Kemba are those two guys, and they haven't shown it in the last few years. But like I said, I'm going to kind of reiterate this, is that I think quickly Derrick Rose, RJ, Julius Randle, I think those are four guys who are going to play every night. I think they're going to be effective. They're going to play defense. They're going to play really hard. And when you have a good coach like Tibbs, I'm okay with putting my money on him and betting the over.
Yeah, they just got to go 500.
Right.
I think if you have a top 10 defense, I think they'll still be in the top 10. Tibbs brings the top 10 defense to the table just by showing up. So if you have a top 10 defense and an improving offense, I think that's 500 play for sure.
Yeah,
And
McBride was
I
pretty
love
good
this.
in the summer league too.
And he's one of those guys that he probably is going to play hard and good enough on defense. Like he's a West Virginia guy, right?
Yeah, Huggins guy.
If he can play for Bob Huggins, he can probably play for Tom Thibodeau. So
that might have been the reason why. Yeah.
Tibbs called Huggins and was like,
right.
"Did you rip his ass as much as I'm going to?" And he's like, "Yep." So, yeah, I think that I just like the makeup of their team. I like adding Kemba and Fournier to give them a little offensive boost because they needed it. They need some extra shooting, especially losing Bullock. Bullock shot really good for them last year, but Fournier is an excellent scorer. He's big. Fournier's big, which will help on defense.
Yeah, Nerlens Noel was okay for them last year. He played hard. He stepped in and filled in some minutes.
Definitely.
That at all. I think they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder still. As good as they played, I still think this roster has a little bit of nobody.
RJ has some growth left, in my opinion.
A little bit of nobody believes in us still, right? A little, on their chips. So I like this. I like having good coaches behind my bets, and I'm with you. I'm going to bet you in this exact same bet on the over.
Yeah, well, that's going to do it for tonight. We'll be back next Thursday at 7:30 to cover the last 10 teams, the Thunder through the Wizards. I am struggling on my locks here in this next set of 10 teams. There's some really, really good numbers. The books got pretty sharp here, but we'll have our picks. We'll be able to break down these teams and be looking forward to some golf this week. We made our picks last night, and few good starts by our guys.
Yeah, let's root for Matthew Wolff because he actually shot 400 today, which is nice. We have the worst team in the league coming next week, Justin. The worst team in the league.
I think we covered that with the Houston Rockets tonight, but there's certainly a team next week that's gonna challenge them. So we're gonna be done here, and we will see you next Thursday or next Wednesday for golf, and then next Thursday for basketball.
Cool.
Peace out.